Welcome back. It's time for Customers Who Click. Another great D2C episode for you today as I'm interviewing Chris Manderino, the founder of Lyfe Fuel, who sell plant-based nutritional products. Chris is super focused on the customer experience, not just for new customers, which is of course really important, but also for existing and returning customers. A lot of brands think that, the hard work is done once you've acquired a customer, but that's far from the truth. Chris is going to talk us through his approach to customer experience, how they adopt tech early to help with friction, and why communication with the customer is crucial. Let's get Chris on now. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining me today. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself, give us a bit of your background and how you got to where you are with Lyfe Fuel?
Yeah, certainly happy to be here. So my name is Chris Manderino, founder and CEO at Lyfe Fuel. We are a plant-based nutrition company. Kind of my journey as to how I kind of arrived at founding this company and now operating it for the past 7 years is I was an athlete pretty much my entire life. I grew up playing a bunch of different sports, ultimately focused on football, American football, that is. And ultimately walked on at Berkeley, played collegiate football, started as a fullback for 4 years, and then was able to pursue my childhood dream of playing in the NFL. And it's really that time and really actually post-football career where it really took a vested interest in health and nutrition and saw how powerful that could be for performance, but also, for longevity and overall health and wellness. And what I saw was a massive, gap or problem in the market where, a lot of Western societies, especially in the United States, we've got more abundance of calories, we're overfed. But if you look at nutrition, we're actually undernourished, right? And you've got a whole host of different, lifestyle preventable illnesses that are direct cause of the fuel that we're putting in our body. And in between post-football career and starting Lyfe Fuel, actually was a territory manager and sales rep for Metagenics. It's a major multinational corporation now. It really takes a functional approach to wellness and the science as to which they kind of produce nutritional products is world class. And I really learned a ton about the science and product formulation at that time, but saw a larger opportunity to take that to the direct consumer marketplace and kind of not have to go through, a naturopath or, doctor or something to gain access to this education and these, fuel sources that can be so powerful for optimal health and wellness. And that was really the primary concept that launched Lyfe Fuel, is to, one, make it easier for people to get their daily nutrients that they're missing from food. If you look at the statistics, it's like 99% of us don't get, the nutrition we need, even if you're eating a healthy diet, which very few of us even do in the first place. And so Lyfe Fuel was born out of that concept to just make that easy and attainable, so that, you are getting your daily nutrients, and only then can you look, feel, and actually perform your best every day.
Cool. Sounds good. And how long have you been doing this now?
It's been about 7 years now. So it was about 2 years, just back-end business development, product formulation. When we launched Lyfe Fuel 7 years ago, there wasn't really a ton of options in terms of plant-based nutrition in the space. You had the incumbents like Vega and Garden of Life, but none of them really tasted good. It's not something that I could wrap my mind around, doing as a daily, shake or something that I wanted to take. And so it was a lot of just product development, innovation, trying to, one, include all these amazing nutrients, to maintain that nutritional integrity without dumping a bunch of sugar and other stuff in it. And three, just kind of making that taste amazing. And so we finally kind of nailed it, and we've constantly iterated, and we're going through a new iteration now, 5 years later, to kind of improve upon what we've built and take in all that user feedback to continue to evolve the product and the business moving forward.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the taste. I tried, I think it's a very UK focused company at the moment called Huel, Huel.
Yep.
I remember trying them when they were, I think, still quite new, and it was there was no flavor. It was, I think they listed it as unflavored or plain or something.
Right.
And that on its own, I couldn't drink. It was Yeah, not great. So I found myself having to add like an extra scoop of protein powder or something just to make it
tolerable.
But I think that's developed a lot more now. So I think they've got a lot more options. So what do you think has been kind of the biggest contributor to growth for you guys, maybe in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I would say the biggest contributor to growth is really just been, persistence in us, like continuing to look outside the box as to, how we can build a community around, these core values, right? And so, we haven't done a ton of, advertising or digital marketing, right? That most D2C brands have kind of depended on, right? We've kind of looked at, because we bootstrapped the business for the first 3.5 years. And so we were always very mindful about creating a sustainable and profitable business. And so we really needed to lean into creating an amazing product experience, customer experience, right? Because retaining those customers that are coming to us is super important, right? That allows the marketing dollars that we do spend to go a lot further, because now we're creating, a better LTV model, as opposed to the churn and burn, trying to get as many customers as we can, as quickly as we can, and losing them at that same velocity. And so I think it's really been really leaning into that product development process, the customer experience piece of things. And that certainly hasn't been a perfect scenario, especially over the past 2 years. We've certainly struggled and been challenged with a lot of the, updates and challenges in supply chain, and, trying to communicate that as best we can to customers. But I would say that is the one thing that's really contributed to, sustainable organic growth, is just like that customer experience, taking care of people, understanding that this is a daily, habit that they're trying to perform. They're trying to look and feel better, right, using our products. And so we need to make that easy. We need to make that enjoyable. We've got to remove a lot of these, frustrations, and continue to iterate and develop, updated formulations, new products using, that feedback. I would say the other thing too that we've done is, content marketing, and really starting to think about how SEO can be a driver for growth and bring in kind of more organic traffic for us. And those have really been the two things that have, helped us build the business. And then there's the Amazon side of things, which is always kind of a catch-22, right? It's one of those things that we've kind of had to do, right? Because there's just so many eyeballs and people directly looking to purchase our products through that channel. And it's really provided the cash flow and profitability that we can then use to really build that brand that we sought out to achieve. And so I think really having robust Amazon listings and capitalizing on keywords and the demand for what we're doing in this space has been extremely advantageous, and allowed us, it's fueled the growth for all the D2C stuff.
Yeah. And do you spend time trying to, do you put effort into trying to move people away from Amazon to the brand? So once you acquire them through Amazon?
Yeah, it's a tricky scenario, right? I think, our mindset is we're agnostic as to where the first purchase happens. Ideally, we would love everybody to start their journey with us directly at Lyfe Fuel, but we're also realistic and know that that's not the case, right? And what we are trying to do is we're trying to deliver a better customer experience when you buy direct. We actually sell the best price is always through our website, right? The subscription service is through our website. So if you want if you want the best value, then you come direct. So Amazon is a great discovery platform. So we're doing certain things that, yes, make people aware. And I think, ultimately you got people that are going to just buy on Amazon because it's easy. It's same day, next day, 2 day or whatever. Yeah. And that's all they care about. But people who really want to engage with the brand, be first in line for new products, and really care about the mission and the core values and everything that we're trying to do beyond, obviously the product side of the business will eventually come to us directly. But yeah, we've definitely deployed some strategies to kind of make that more natural. Obviously, Amazon's kind of a black box as to what details you can get from the customer, but there are some interesting strategies that you can deploy to kind of make that a more natural and easy transition from Amazon back to the website.
Yeah, it's some of the post-purchase stuff. So, once they've got the product in their hands, kind of, I suppose, using the product or even just a leaflet or insert or something to say, this is what you're going to get if you come to us directly.
Correct. Yeah, and sometimes that's tricky, right? Depending on your product, right? So our product only has primary packaging, right? So it's not like we can put a leaflet insert. We can't do one of those little neck tags that you put on a supplement bottle, right? And if you have secondary packaging, that's way easier. We are testing is actually stickering those bags, or if you have digital printing, you can play around with QR codes, and you have to be smart, obviously within Amazon's terms of service, but there are different things that you can do to kind of utilize those technologies in spite of not having secondary packaging to drive repeat purchases and potentially direct stuff. So
yeah, because you mentioned obviously customer experience is really important to you. Have you got some examples of what does a good customer experience look like to you for Lyfe Fuel? What are some examples of things you do that you feel really nail it?
Yeah, so I think, we're retooling our customer experience, process now in terms of what is that experience when the package arrives at your doorstep? I think that's the final piece that we haven't really done the best job, right? Because it's, you're sending product to Amazon, you're also trying to improve that direct to consumer experience. So right now, those kind of look more or less the same. You're going to get better, hands-on support when you come to us. So if you have any, issue in terms of delays or delivery, right? We try to make ourselves readily available, pick up the phone, and just kind of work through that with customers. We really take the approach that if something's gone wrong, let us fix it. Don't put the onus back on the customer to try to figure out what's, with UPS or where the package is. Let's get another one out. If we can recoup that cost, then, it's our duty to kind of fix it. And so I think a lot of times taking, the cost out of that scenario and not just scrutinizing every penny that, it might be unprofitable for us to ship another bag out, right? Or express delivery when somebody's going into surgery the next day and they need the product, right? But those are the types of things that we're happy to do because that's the level of service that we want to deliver to our customers because, so many have become so dependent on using this on a daily basis that when those routines get disrupted, kind of throws everything else off. And so I think it's being mindful about that.
It's like, you're taking that hit. You're kind of giving someone that discount for that 1 month or whatever, that subscription period. But you're then potentially keeping them for 12 more months. Exactly. And the alternative, by saying to them, well, sorry, it's your problem, figure it out with UPS, do you then lose that customer and it's done?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then you've got probably a bad review, definitely not a good review. You're not going to get any of that word of mouth or you're not going to get any positive word of mouth. You probably are going to get that negative stuff. Yeah. So, for the sake of, I don't know what the product costs you, but I don't know, let's say it's $20 to $50 or something to just re-fulfill that product. Like you say, you're going to earn that back in the long term by keeping that customer happy.
Absolutely. And I think the other part too is just honestly picking up the phone and calling people, right? And I've done a lot of that personally myself, right? And one, just to interview and kind of get insight from customers about, maybe things that we should think about as we evolve and look at different ways to invest and grow the business, which is extremely some of the most useful feedback you can ever get, right? It's using that from the most loyal customers. But two, just picking up the phone call, being able to kind of totally reverse a terrible, negative experience where people are literally up in arms. You'd be surprised at some of the nasty voicemails that you get in emails, and it is crazy. But just taking the time, saying, "Hey, this is Chris. I'm the founder of Lyfe Fuel. I hear you. let me share a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes, right? Because you can't expect the customer necessarily be privy to all the challenges that we're experiencing as a business with supply chain. I mean, nor is it their job or duty, right? Like, our duty to the customer is to get them an amazing product when we say we're going to, and try to make that, as easy of an experience as possible. And on the backside, manage it however we need to make that happen. And so I think that's always, served us well, is really empathizing, listening to the customer, taking the time to say, hey, you're appreciated. Hey, here's what we can do. And let me just kind of share, a little bit more about where we're at on our journey, right? Because a lot of times we have invested a lot into brand. I think, it's not easy to tell that we're this, small, bootstrappy, young company, right? On surface level, it might, look like we're Vega or somebody else who's got, 100 employees and, entire marketing department and customer service department and everything else, right? And so, just let them know that we are doing the best that we can. Their concerns are heard, and we're actioning those items on our side to create a positive experience.
But I think that's the way it should be. I think a lot of companies have this view that once they've shipped, that's it. That's their responsibility done. It's now the courier's responsibility, but the customer doesn't see that way. The customer's issue is always with you. If the product comes damaged, they don't complain to the courier. They complain to you and say, "Well, this turned up damaged. You need to reship it." What is interesting though is. And someone posted about this on LinkedIn not too long ago. I think he said he'd run a test about courier options, saying, you'll get free shipping with this courier or a standard shipping with this courier. And what they found was actually by putting the name in there, they had a negative impact on conversion rates, because people always have those. Because even though that responsibility is with the merchant, people still have those negative views of the courier.
Yeah.
So it's this weird,
interesting.
They know the courier, they have issues with couriers. They think the couriers are terrible. And we actually got one bit of feedback with one of my clients, which specifically said, because you ship with Hermes, that was the reason they didn't buy.
Really?
They saw that piece of information and went, because I don't like Hermes, I'm not going to buy from you because you use Hermes.
Yeah.
And it's just this really weird.
It's a tricky one too, right? Because you don't own that piece of the supply chain, and that, I would say too, that's kind of the Amazon effect of things, right? Because Amazon has done such an amazing job at getting products to people very quickly, transparent packaging, like those, text or email communicate, like, where everything is. And it's very, very consistent. But the reality is, like, for most D2C brands, pretty much all, don't control that part of the supply chain, and so it makes it super tough.
It's the same with all couriers, because even I know Amazon does own it and kind of controls it, but they can't really control the actual actions of those employees or contractors on the day, right? I've had people so I have a Ring doorbell. Uh-huh. So, you push the button, it pings me on my phone and says someone's at my door.
Yeah.
Right. The first notification I got was, sorry, from Amazon, sorry, we missed you. We've left the package next door with your neighbor. And I'm like, I'm in the house.
Yeah.
I'm picking up my phone. I'm seeing on the screen, there are no notifications from Ring.
Right.
No one ever rang that doorbell. But then I also remember feeling really positive towards Hermes, because I remember them being, I bought from, Marks and Spencer's. And the link up between Marks and Spencer's and Hermes was great. Yeah. They were saying, we've prepared the order for delivery. We've now handed the order over to Hermes, and then shortly afterwards got the message from Hermes saying, we've picked up your order from Marks and Spencer's. It's now on the way. You're going to get it on this day at this time, and then on the day, your delivery slots this hour. So I've had that great experience, and the product did turn up. And there are other people who will say, no, they're terrible. Always use DPD. Yeah. And there'll be other people who have used DPD and hate it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? The more transparent you can be about, what's going on, I think the better that experience will be from the customer standpoint, right? The delays you can't control, right? But if they know, okay, there is a delay and here's why, right? One, if we know that, we can help to action it. But two, they say, okay, now I'm adjusting my expectations. I thought I was going to get it Wednesday. Turns out it's going to come on Friday, right? And if it's something bigger than that, maybe I'm picking up the call, calling Lyfe Fuel or the carrier as to what's really going on. And so that's where we've kind of made some investment in terms of using technology to make that more transparent. You have either SMS or email that's communicating those handoffs between our warehouse, where it's at, and with the carrier. If it's going from UPS to final mile, USPS or whatever, that's more clear. And then if for some reason there's an outlier event where it doesn't meet that criteria, where it should be moving from warehouse to delivery within a certain time frame, then our customer service team can get a notification and action those items directly with the carrier. So it's really having access to the information, making that transparent. And it's also an opportunity for brands to kind of own that part of it, right? Instead of just having the Shopify, standard USPS tracking info, whatever, and then they go to USPS, you can create a branded page that's linking in all those different carriers. It's really taking ownership over that part of the experience with the customer. And I think that's another important way to deliver value. And it's also another selling opportunity, right? Because if you look at a lot of times, like those delivery, order confirmation, delivery emails, those are often some of the most open emails, right? And so then if you're sending people to, branded experience, you have another opportunity to re-engage with your customers at that time instead of just sending them to a carrier website.
Yeah. Do you have a recommended tool that you use for that?
Yeah. So we, I forget the name of the tool that we started with, but we used late shipment to start. We looked at a number of other things. We're now using Rush, which has been good. The team was excellent to work with. They integrated all the flows into our ESP. They working on like the gorgeous integration, which is what we use for customer service. So they've been awesome. It's very fair in terms of like pricing. It's kind of a no-brainer in terms of getting that turned on. We've also looked at one. I think it's more for there's Route, which a lot of people might be familiar with, which actually goes a step beyond, where they're kind of providing insurance on the packaging, on the order. I think there's even more transparency into how it's kind of moving through like that delivery process. I don't know if they have the final mile technology where it kind of shows like an Uber of where your packaging is, but I've seen some brands use that, which is quite cool. But
a lot of the couriers have that now. So I would have thought that would just be it's a deeper integration with the courier to just use that tracking info. Ideally just put it on their own map, because some of them are quite old looking.
Right.
Not that really matters as long as you can see where the order is. But that would be good.
Exactly.
Just one app. Or, potentially an app.
Yeah, so I think whenever, like, there's a lot of stuff in that space now that kind of allows you to easily kind of create that experience. But we're happy with Rush. I think Route does look interesting. Route was kind of less applicable to our business, right? It doesn't really make a ton of sense for us to like insure every product that goes out. Oftentimes we're better off just, paying for a new, replacement or whatever. But I could definitely see it with, maybe clothes or higher, price, whether it's electronics or beds or whatever, makes a ton of sense to have something like that.
Yeah, especially if some of those higher value products might be quite infrequent purchases.
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
You don't want to ship them another one, because then you just
got one chance.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So what's been your biggest challenge recently?
Supply chain. It's been a beast, to say the least. And just kind of give you more context on that front. So we in getting clear communication from suppliers has really been challenging, right? Everybody's kind of on reduced workloads. Everybody's still very much dealing with, COVID and how to manage that, right? And then, you've got just major disruptions from raw material providers, packaging suppliers, like every different part of the supply chain has been impacted, right? And so from a business standpoint, that makes things extremely challenging, right? From going from what should be a 10 to 12 week lead time. That's kind of we're running our forecasting and like seeing sales velocity and saying, okay, like, do we have enough buffer here? Well, let's say 16 weeks to be safe. And then 16 goes to 20, 21, 22, that's a considerable amount of time, especially for, a business that doesn't have, 100 different SKUs, right? In that case, okay, you're out of stock on one SKU, big deal. Hopefully some of those other ones, carry you through. If it's your hero product, okay, yeah, you're going to take a beating probably, but even more so for us, right? Our hero product drives about 80% of our revenue. So when that goes out of stock, talking about, significant hit to the business, right? And then the other challenge that comes along with that is we don't have clear and consistent communication from, the manufacturing side. It makes it impossible to set that customer expectation and say, okay, like here's when we actually expect it in stock. You're just faced with all these new sets of business challenges. Do we stop selling the product, right, and not capturing that revenue altogether? Are we close enough where we can, have it shipped in like 2 to 3 weeks and just kind of manage that communication and customer expectations? And, that's been really tough, right? Because, the first time it happened, we didn't, we were unprepared. We didn't do a great job of communicating that to customers because one, we didn't really have any information to communicate because we were just in the dark, right? And that trickled all the way down to our customers, and they were, rightfully frustrated and saying, you guys are blowing it. Like I'm going to go somewhere else and find, somebody who can deliver this, product for me. And it's tough.
Yeah, well, like what you said earlier, your customers, I'm assuming it's a daily use product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they get into the habit of using it every day. So if that gets disrupted, and then the communication's not great, and they don't really know what's going on. It's, do I stick around and wait for this company to send me a new one in a week, maybe two, or do I just jump online and buy something else potentially from Amazon?
Yeah, exactly right.
Amazon or even worse, go sign up with a
competitor or something. Yeah.
So I suppose for you as well, there's that question of, we've got this amount of stock, which is going to last us this amount of weeks, but we're not expecting restock for plus 2 weeks.
Right.
So do we stop acquiring customers and just focus on making sure we retain everyone?
And that's the scenario that we kind of have had to run through. Like we're in that same situation again, right? And it's like, okay. And that's, I guess, kind of bringing it full circle. That is the value of being a direct customer with us. We can prioritize, our subscription customers, right? Okay, when there's limited supply available, we're serving those customers first, right? Because they have made this, demonstration of loyalty that they have made this a part of their daily routine. So we need to make sure that those customers are getting their product first, or at least presented with another option that can meet their needs in this time where we're in a supply chain crunch. I think that's one way that we've been able to kind of create this like VIP tier of customers and really demonstrate that, hey, we value your business. We're going to do the best we can to kind of take care of you during these challenging times.
Yeah, I mean those repeat customers, they're the ones who, if you can, if it means stopping acquiring new customers or switching off the single purchases, but you keep the subscribers happy, then next month those subscribers are still there.
Exactly.
Whereas you don't necessarily know that someone who makes a single purchase is going to come back.
Right. Exactly right.
It's obviously not a decision you want to have to make, but if you've got to make that decision, I guess it should be relatively simple to say, we've got to go with the guys who are kind of committed and are likely to keep buying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's another, benefit in, any D2C company that has the opportunity, especially consumable, it's almost no brainer to develop that subscription base of customers. One, because you have more predictable, revenue. You can really use that to kind of grow the business more pragmatically. And two, you're kind of sheltered a little bit from, these out of stock issues, because there's probably other things that you can do to still capture that revenue. Drive the business, even if you don't have, stock available immediately. The other thing too that's been a big blessing for us is inventory financing, right? And so, early days of being, these company, you're trying to figure out cash flow. Like, where can I? A lot of people just go out and raise a bunch of money, right? That works for some people, but you're also diluting yourself down to nothing if it's all, tied up in inventory, because the more you grow, the more that you're going to have to, raise just to, keep up with inventory. For me, that never made sense. Like, if we're going to go raise a bunch of money, it should be invested in growth, growth initiatives, product development, doing like very, creative, interesting things that are, really taking leaps and bounds forward for the brand. And so once you've kind of established a track record of success, you found that product market fit, now there's these other, financial vehicles that you can go out, tap into. Yeah, you're paying, a percentage on top of that. But, what we've been able to do is we've got great terms with our financial partner. It's actually baked into our cost of goods sold, and we're not paying, on those units anymore until they actually leave the warehouse. And so that's considerable when you're looking at 24-week, lead times now, right? And then, the final unit out might be another, 24 weeks on top of that. The length of time that, you're not tying up all that capital just to have it sit on a shelf that can be deployed into, marketing activities, growing your internal team, and doing all these other things. So that is really significant. It's been a huge help for us. And like, we don't even have our next round of products in house yet, but we've already, kicked off that next PO to now adjust for this, because we've got access to that funding that can just kind of help to make this more streamlined.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great. You touched on kind of customer communications a little bit earlier, so I just want to go into that a little bit more. Maybe a little bit from the marketing side, but obviously you said it's really key to communicate, right? So if you do have those delays and things, just at least email people straight away, maybe an SMS. Yeah. Worst case scenario, or the in the worst situations, pick up the phone and speak to people. So how has your process changed over the last maybe the last couple of years, or longer if it has taken longer? What would you say is key to that? The process there.
Yeah, I think the big key, in the early days, is bootstrap business. You're doing all this yourself, right? So you're developing products, you're managing customer service, and you get to an inflection point where it's like, oh, it's impossible for me to continue doing all this myself and grow the business, right? So one, getting that help. We worked with like virtual assistants over in the Philippines, like amazing, like, a compliment to what we're doing as a business. We've also discovered platforms like Talent Pop, who actually help do the whole interviewing, hiring process. They give you a list of candidates that are a good fit for the business, do all the video interviews, and then kind of bring that to you and have a collaborative conversation about, okay, who do you think is going to be the best fit to grow your customer experience team. So that's been awesome. You definitely need the human capital to be able to manage that. The other thing too is systems, right? And so we use Gorgeous. It's been great. So instead of having those reps jump into Shopify and all these different places to find out what's going on with a customer, now everything is there in a centralized dashboard within Gorgeous. We've moved our subscriptions over from Recharge to a tool called Skio, because that's more essentially integrated with like the way that orders appear in Shopify. Before, it's a very clunky, challenging process. You have to go into Recharge. It's not communicating directly with Shopify. It was a total nightmare. Right now with Skio, everything's there in Gorgeous, super easy. for customers to manage, and very easy for our customer experience team to manage as well. And then we use Slack for just ongoing day-to-day, like internal communication, also very easy to integrate, other teams, external teams into those communication channels. Like Talent Pop kind of helps to oversee like our CX process and make sure that our reps are really held accountable for, the daily tasks that they're in charge of. And then, just giving them ownership, I think, is the last thing, into really handling those conversations and those challenging situations with customers, right? That's not micromanaging the process and saying, hey, like, always lead with, making the customer happy. Like, you have some, free reign here, get as much information you can, ask, these types of questions, really understand, what is the root cause, and try to kind of triage that. And then, just always lead with, what you feel is right. And then we have the data that we need to say, okay, well, this is just a bad customer, right? Every time, we send something to them, there's a problem, right? Then maybe they're not the best one for Lyfe Fuel, right? Or maybe we need to kind of be a little bit more assertive as to what, because we have, this pattern of stuff. But I think those things, right? Systematizing it, making sure you have some sort of operational platform, and then, just kind of empowering our team to really action any issues that do come up.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of when I was at a company called GameSys here in the UK. It's a big gambling group. We'd have kind of triggers to identify bad customers. Not in the way you were describing. They weren't difficult customers, but we knew that they weren't valuable customers. Mm-hmm. And basically, it was things like lapse prevention campaigns, right? So if we'd be able to connect up all the data across the brands to say, if this person has had, X number of lapse prevention campaigns on this brand, and they start an account on this other brand, we're already scoring them low. From their baseline is low, because we're saying we already know that they're not a very valuable customer.
Right.
They pretty much only play when there's a bonus available. Never really put in their own cash and stuff, apart from the minimums required. So not going to make much money. So what's the point? We'll keep them happy. We'll give them the bonuses every now and again, but we're not going to give them the big bonuses.
Yeah. And I think the analogy for like the D2C world is like those customers that are only going to buy on discount, right? Or, always asking you, it's just like just destroying, all margin on the product, and, want it, like crazy cheap, and don't understand that at the end of the day, you got to make the buck somehow, right? Otherwise you don't have a business. And sometimes those can be the most challenging customers to deal with. So
they're the ones who also are the ones who complain about anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? The product arrived an hour outside of the delivery slot. Yeah. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Not a lot. Well, it's the same with everything, isn't it? Everyone says, your cheap customers, your cheap clients are also the ones who are the most needy, the most demanding.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just with the discount customers. But at GameSys, we also had the VIPs.
Yeah.
Right. And those were the people who got account managers, who'd have conversations with them, actually get to know them. Almost like concierge style service for gambling.
Yeah.
And it's worth it, right? You give people this better experience.
Exactly.
The way, I know it's bad because it's gambling, but the way gambling approaches this kind of like kind of RFM models, right? Mm-hmm. And scoring of customers and segmenting by that, is they do it really, really well. Yeah. Because they know that there are people who are just going to abuse the bonuses and that's it. And they know there are people who are going to just spend loads of money. They're really going to enjoy it. They're never going to complain. And it's great. I remember getting on a call with someone, or listening into a call, and this person hadn't played for a little while. And so they were phoning up this VIP to just check in on them, see what's going on. And this person said the reason they'd stopped playing is because at the time we were running a bingo competition, and they were a slots player. And they said from their experience of in physical casinos, when physical casinos run bingo competitions, fewer people were on the slots machines. And so the slot machines paid out less or less frequently. And they just had that same view of the online experience.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. And this person had just spent, I'm not sure what their actual spend was, but the amount they played was over 100 grand.
Oh, wow.
Right, that they just played through slot machines.
Yeah.
And she said she wasn't interested in bonuses, didn't really care about bonuses, anything like that. Just wanted to play, wanted to have fun. Wouldn't mind getting a few free spins every now and again. But for her, it was literally just, it was fun, right? It was just a way to kill a bit of time. But then you've got the other people, the people who will do the minimum £10 deposit and play. And then the moment they lose all that, will leave a negative review and say, oh, it's all rigged. The system's against you. It's like, well, it's gambling. Yeah, of course. Everyone knows this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just amazing how people spend so much money and just not care because they've had fun and they've enjoyed the experience.
Well, I think that brings up an important and applicable point, right? It's those, the psychographics and the behavior graphics that exist in these different customer cohorts, right? And it requires a different strategy, communication, pulse for your VIP customers because they probably care. You don't need the big promotional marketing. They're happy with the product. They're enjoying it. They've integrated it into their daily routine. So how can you kind of add value to those, that cohort of customers, show your appreciation for them, really put them to the front of the line when you are launching a new product or, have more direct conversations about, feedback with the business versus, your fringe comes to customers, they buy every, 3-6 months only on discount, right? Or those customers who, they're on their subscriber list, but they haven't made a purchase yet, right? And they need a little bit more nurturing, right? To really understand the value that they get from you. So each of those, cohorts should be, have a separate communication strategy around that, right? And that's where something like, whether it's Klaviyo or OmniSend or whatever, there's, really good segmentation data to be able to utilize that and say, okay, how do we communicate with these different groups of customers? Because that can, if you're blasting your VIP customers constantly with the same promotional emails that you're giving to those kind of fringe or kind of nurture, they're going to get sick and tired of it. It's like, you guys are sending too many, just marketing emails. I don't care, right? I'm already buying your product. Why are you trying to, get me to buy it cheaper? I'm happy. So,
yeah, especially with less subscribers. But I think a lot of businesses on that don't segment out the, the discount people or the VIPs. But also they give everyone the same offer.
Same discount. Yeah,
so
exactly.
You might look at someone who's spending, you're going to have a group of people who will spend, obviously depends on the business, but maybe 50 quid here and there on a purchase, right? And then you've got other people who might come in and spend 500 every month.
Yeah.
And then you go and offer them a £10 discount or something.
Yeah.
And they're like,
this is nothing.
Someone spending 500, they're nothing, they don't care.
Yeah.
So, that was another thing in gambling that initially it's quite difficult with obviously the people who've never deposited before because you don't know what level they're at. But because there's no product, right? There's no pricing, there's no products.
Yeah.
You really can't tell. Like you don't know if someone's going to deposit £10 or 10,000. It could really be that different. So I was working on them before I left. I was working with them on some kind of pre-deposit valuation, which would be, have they got an account on another website? So we can actually just take that data and say, well, it's a VIP, so we know they're a VIP. Mm-hmm. But then also looking at it was things like, what advert have they come through? Did they come through like media or PPC? Did they come through a promotion? How far through that sign-up process and deposit process did they get before dropping? And then we're also starting to look into things like postcodes, right? Their address. Yeah. Are they in an affluent area? Or how do our existing customers who live in that area compare to that? How do people who live in that area look like as customers? And so can we say, well, if everyone in this postcode is in a multi-million pound house and all deposit tens of thousands every month, it's a good chance this person will be as well. So let's give them a bigger discount.
Right.
But obviously this is a lot of work. Requires a pretty smart team to put this together. So it's not, not something that any e-commerce business can do, but it would be quite interesting information if you could get it.
Yeah. I think, and it's like just, from a business owner standpoint, just it can be very complicated very quickly, right? Analytics can be overwhelming, but just starting to think there's little experiments that you can run and just kind of, okay, we've got 2 cohorts, right? And let's, kind of adjust our communication strategy or offer around those 2 cohorts and see how that kind of evolves. In your case, right? It could be, okay, we're going to offer 100 pounds off somebody when they, or 100-pound match when somebody invests, 1,000 pounds to start their account versus somebody, it could be a 20 for 20 based off demographic, information that you have and that kind of hypothesis that you have, right? Because it's about, okay, let's just get this person into the system so they can start using the product or the service, right? Then, it doesn't really matter, right? Because you've acquired that customer, and then if you're providing a good service or product, hopefully you're keeping the customer through that. So I think you get creative on that offer side. Yeah,
I mean, it becomes it's 100 times easier with a digital product where you've got the data on usage as well, right? So in the gambling, we also looked at it, did a value calculation based off their first 7 days. So how much they deposited, or did they deposit and play immediately? Mm-hmm. If it wasn't immediate, it was how quickly after deposit did they play? How quickly are they playing? Do they engage with certain various games? Do they use the free games as well? All these little signals which would add up and at the end of these 7 days say, cool, we're going to put this person in this bracket. So now they're in probably not. I don't think you can go straight into VIP, but you'd be at a top level or you'd be at a bottom level, and then that would put you into CRM sequences, which was great. Yeah. A bit more difficult for a physical.
Which is also, I think from a physical product standpoint, right? Especially if you have subscription, right? Over time you can get some, pretty strong data about when that churn cycle is, right? So if you have a monthly thing and people are dropping off at, canceling on day 25, or maybe it's further out, maybe they do 2 consecutive subscriptions, then drop off, then you can kind of create a more, aggressive or kind of nurturing communication around that, churn point, right? And say, okay, this is our critical threshold right now. We got to figure out what's going on here at this event to make sure we're communicating the value of sticking with this, over long, reinforcing kind of those reasons why people bought from us in the first place. And I think that is a great place to start in terms of using that data to your advantage.
Yeah, there'll be that kind of 1 to 3 month churn point, which is people aren't quite getting it, maybe not seeing the value. So how do you educate them? And then there's that maybe 18-month churn point, which is, what's going on here? Why are people sticking around for 18 months? But that's our kind of average drop-off point for people. Are they getting bored? Do they want different flavors? Whatever. But I mean, there is some easier stuff you can do at the initial point, and some of it is just around making people feel happy towards the brand, right? Make them like the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember when I was at Readly, digital magazine subscription. What we did was we sent out a postcard to people, and so a handwritten postcard. And initially, I started sending it out when people were in their free trial period. Which we only did it for when they had a 1 month free trial. And we found that if we sent it during the trial period, there's no impact at all. But if we sent it to customers who'd made their first payment before their second one was due, that had a massive impact on retention and actual engagement with the product as well. So people reading more magazines, using the product on more devices as well. And we weren't explaining the value of the product at all. It was literally just thanks for signing up. We're here if you've got any questions. And people obviously just really appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we used to do when I was starting customer service actually at my previous job before going into sales, but like we had cards and we would send them out to customers, and like it was amazing the response that we would receive just from taking the time to, handwrite those things. And, again, it's one of those things that maybe you can't do at scale, but like the, impact that it has for those customers is so significant, right? And sometimes it's doing those things that don't necessarily scale that, really create that brand and creating that loyal, customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, it just reminds me of another thing. Back at Readly as well, we had the first kind of anniversary of the UK office, and we invited a load of customers. So I actually got on the phone, phoned up a load of customers, invited them to the event, and then shortly before the event, phoned them up again to double check with them, make sure everything's okay. They're aware of how to get there. They know where it is and all that. Unfortunately, on the day I couldn't make it because I'd booked that day off, and the day of the event had got shifted to that day. So I wasn't there, but quite a few of the customers asked where I was, actually asked to meet me.
Oh, really?
Because I'd phoned them up and I'd spoken to them.
Yeah.
And actually at another company, we did a similar thing with emails. We were doing kind of plain text emails, which were like kind of onboarding. They weren't quite customer service, but they weren't marketing sales emails. They were kind of check-in emails. And I think it was from Ashley, I think the name was. And Ashley didn't exist in the team. But people liked these emails so much, they were actually asking to speak to Ashley when they phoned up customer service, or when they emailed in customer service, they said, oh, can Ashley help because she reached out to me or something. And that was kind of when we realized we'd maybe not done it as we had intended. And we'd actually really given people the impression this was someone reaching out to them personally. Yeah. And wasn't quite what we meant, but it works.
Well, I think that it's, it is an interesting approach. It's something that we actually do a lot of as well, right? Because if you go to our website, you see, our email communication, it's very much, me. And that might not be a fit for, every brand out there, but, it is something that we didn't like. I always try to think of things from a customer perspective first, right? Like most of the sales promotional emails, one, I either never see them, or two, they're going, somewhere else, and I'm just kind of scanning. And then, whereas we try to lead with value storytelling, it's more just, plain text emails, and trying to really, either motivate, educate our customers around kind of this, how they can make this part of their daily routine, how they can really live their best life, and create that, one-to-one personalization. I think that's a very powerful way for brands to stand out is really do that, because most of the time you're just getting the standard automated sales emails, and people are kind of turning a blind eye to it. They don't really add much value.
I mean, most of the time you can just tell from the subject line.
Exactly.
It's a promotional message, and you can make a decision on the spot there and then whether you want to open it.
Right.
The thing a lot of people might take from that is go clickbaity, right?
Yeah.
And don't use the promotional message. Do something that gets people's attention and gets them in, and then but that doesn't really work either. But I mean, I think I can scan through my inbox, my kind of email, my marketing newsletter inbox, and I can probably picture exactly what a load of these emails are going to look like.
Yeah.
And some of them I like, some of them because they're going to be interesting and useful, and there's probably going to be some sort of personalized message. And there are others which I know are going to be a grid of products.
Yeah.
With probably a few grids of promotional messages in there as well. And quite often I find myself ignoring them and then eventually hitting sweep and getting rid of them all.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I use a tool. I use two tools. So one is unroll.me, and all those things, if they are no longer adding value, from a newsletter standpoint or whatever, they go into that unroll.me, and I get a daily digest, and you got both a visual kind of roll up of all that. So it takes 2 seconds to scan, boom, you've got a visual and a subject heading. And very rarely am I ever even clicking on any of those emails, but the newsletters that are adding value, they stay in my inbox. I'm reading through those, and most of them don't even contain much, media at all. It's just, articles that, are information rich that, I find value in.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, just before we finish, is there anyone in the kind of D2C marketing space that you'd want to go for lunch with?
I think Nick Sharma would be an interesting guy to sit down with. He's one of those guys. I've been following his email newsletter now for a while. I think he delivers a lot of, good value and actionable insight for, founders. He gives a lot of the stuff away kind of for free a lot of times. So I think it would be fun to sit down and pick his brain because he's got a good track record of success in the D2C space.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I feel like this might be the third episode in a row where the guest has said Nick Sharma.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
So he's doing something right.
His name is popping up a lot. Yeah, definitely. Cool. And what about a couple of marketing tools that you'd recommend to people? Maybe some of the less obvious ones, so not like Klaviyo, for example.
Yeah, so I think Skio is one that I mentioned earlier on the call. So very common subscription software that people use is Recharge for Shopify brands. Skio has been a great alternative for us. And the founder was awesome. Kenan there was really hands-on and personal and helping us, migrate all the data over from Recharge to Skio. So that's been a big benefit. It loops in nicely with Gorgeous. I think, again, making it tangible to this conversation. Gorgeous, obviously, for customer service makes things a lot easier. And then if you are looking to kind of hire out, build your customer service part of a business, talent pot, to make that significantly easier for businesses, finding those remote workers who can really take ownership of that customer service team. They do a stand-up job, and save the founders a lot of time and energy trying to do that on their own.
Awesome, cool. And if anyone wanted to reach out and ask you a question, what would be the best way of doing that?
So just email me, Chris at Lyfe Fuel, or LinkedIn. I'm there as well. Those are typically, the best places to get my immediate attention. It's tough now because so many people are I think abusing those two as a communication channel. But I do read through pretty much all my emails and LinkedIn messages. So that would be the best direct point of contact.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you. Will. This has been great.
Something Chris really focuses on, as he mentioned, is lifetime value. For any business, particularly young subscription businesses, you just can't afford high customer churn. The cost of acquisition takes such a huge chunk of that initial purchase that you have to be working hard to make sure customers come back again and again. And part of this is done through just making the customers' lives as easy as possible. Make sure your customer service is fantastic. Make sure you communicate transparently when customers order, whether that's just to confirm the order or let them know of any problems. If you give your customers a fantastic experience, a better experience than they'll get through Amazon, which is very functional, you've got a much better chance of retaining those customers in the long term. If you'd like to reach out to Chris, you can find him on LinkedIn. Any other podcast questions, feedback, guest requests, please send them over to will@customerswhoclick.com. Next up, I've got Paul Davis joining me from Shoe Size Me, and we'll be exploring the online customer experience and in particular the dreaded dead end. But until then, keep those customers clicking.